Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our Saturday seminar discourse. Today, we actually have a very special personality, His Grace Caitanya Charandas, all the way from India. Prabhu is known as a spiritual scientist, and we're very blessed, very lucky. And Vishaka Prabhu will give a better introduction.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So I'll do the introduction of Prabhu. He doesn't need any introduction, so I'll just do the formality. And it's, you get, some nice punya when you glorify the Vaishnavas. So I don't want to miss that chance. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is a mentor, he's a monk, and he's a speaker. And he's been a spiritual teacher for nearly 25 years in the Bhakti Yoga tradition through its modern day expression, ISKCON, for ISKCON. He's the author of, any guesses? How many books? 27 books that explain the relevance of Vedic wisdom text, including Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana. He's the author of the world's only daily blog on Bhagavad Gita, gitadaily.com, where he has written some 4,000 articles on Gita. He was invited at TEDx, World Peace Conference, UNESCO, Intel, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, MIT, and Cambridge. He gives 400 talks across 100 cities in 4 continents every year. Welcome, Caitanya Charan Prabhu.
Is it on Wi-Fi?
Sorry?
Is the TV on Wi-Fi?
No.
Oh, it's not connected there? Yes. What is the touch screen? Where is the remote for this? Okay. Oh, great. It's come. It had come just now for a minute. Good. What did you do? Leave it. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Visible? Hare Krishna. Am I audible to everyone? Am I tolerable to everyone? Okay, thank you for the nice kirtan. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjalishalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Tanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for waiting. Sorry for the delay. Previous program got over a little late. So we are going to discuss about depression, and I'll be using this as a whiteboard to write and draw certain things. Okay, make this slightly lower. So I'll start by asking you, when you hear the word depression, what do you think it means? Yes? Okay. Negativity in terms of what? Okay, negativity in terms of primarily emotions. Okay, good. Thank you. Anything else? Yes? Anxiety. Okay. Does we feel that? Sorry? Oh, the past was better than the present. That's quite articulately put. So, anxiety is thinking about this, that it's also something like not just anxiety, it's almost like anxiety that leads to something like inadequacy. Isn't it that maybe I am not good enough? And it's a depression can also be when we feel that my best is behind me. Maybe my best was anyway not that great, but even that is behind me. Then that is very difficult to deal with, because we all need some hope to move ahead in life. Anything else? Self-deprecating attitude. It's almost like we have an inner critic who is constantly berating and beating us from within. So, self-deprecation. Low confidence, yes. This is something similar to anxiety, but anxiety can be about external things. This confidence is about oneself itself. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. It's, we could say that, but then we can also say that there are so many people who are not Krishna conscious, but they may not be depressed. We could say ultimately that is the cause of everything, but it is not that everybody who lacks Krishna consciousness is immediately depressed. So this is more in terms of solution, we could talk about it. Thank you. Yes, please. Hopelessness, yes. This is something related with the past is better than the future, but yes. When, okay, there are problems, and we can find some solution to the problems, but there are problems and I feel there is no solution. That is where it's hopeless. Yeah, thank you. Yes, sadness. I think sadness is a sadly inadequate word. It's almost like you can say agony or unbearable gloominess, something like that. Yes, but it's sadness going in that direction. Yes? Oh, yes. That's among the many predictors of suicide, one of them is depression. Suicidal thoughts. Yeah? Yeah, that's a good point. Inertia, lethargy, what is the point even of getting out of bed in the morning? Yes, inertia or lethargy. Competition leads to depression. Are you saying failure in competition? Okay, yes. So we could say, if there is a lot of competition and we feel that we couldn't do it, we couldn't do well, then that leads to depression. Or to be in a dark place. Yes, now, let's put it here. It's almost like outer may be bright, but it's an inner a dark place. A very dark place, yes. Inferiority complex. Yes. That's similar to low self-confidence, but it goes much deeper. Low self-confidence might be about one particular thing, but inferiority complex can pervade our entire existence and infect all our activities. Okay. Yeah, if you feel victimized, then this is also related with that feeling of hopelessness, but here it's almost like something external has targeted us, and that makes us feel depressed. Yes. Yes, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, low confidence, something similar. Sorry, come again? Yeah, so now you're saying expectations cause depression, or what it? Okay, so pressure of expectations, or you can say again, inability to meet expectations sometimes. Now when there's too much expectation, then we might do well, but then somebody might say, okay, you did good, but why didn't you do better? So, yes, inability to meet expectations. Yes? Having? Yes, no taste for doing anything. Yeah, this itself eventually leads to why there's no taste, no desire even to exist, for example. But before that, yes, complete lack of motivation. So, demotivated. Well, none of you are depressed in talking about depression. There's a lot of articulate expression. Yes? Okay. We will talk about this. Whether that is definitely associated with depression, but how it is associated, failure of the brain's reward system, reward recognition system. Okay. So basically, we are talking about a biochemical cause, biochemical, neurochemical. So we'll look into this. Yeah. Being socially isolated. So are you saying that is the cause of depression or that is the result of depression? Or both? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think social isolation is a good predictor. If somebody just doesn't want to be with anyone else, then that is possibly because they might be depressed. Yeah. There are people who are introvert, who prefer to be alone. But then that is the way they always are. But when somebody is normally very gregarious and sociable and suddenly they change, they don't want to be with anyone, that is when it's likely that they are being subjected to depression. Yes? Okay, so here you're talking about again a cause of depression. What might lead to depression later on is childhood trauma. Yeah, okay. Yes. It could be, in one sense, any trauma, but childhood trauma can have especially lasting consequences. Now, trauma, in adulthood, generally, if a person faces trauma, then they have something else like PTSD. It's not necessarily depression. But childhood trauma can lead to, again, some of the other problems like low self-esteem or self-deprecation. Yes, thank you. So, I'll talk about depression in three broad aspects. And these three broad aspects, they refer to three aspects of our being. In general, if you consider, life has ups and downs. That is just the way of life. Ups and downs. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. Now that is the way of life. Now, in general, if this is life, this is the external, and now that leads to an internal effect. Internally, Some people tend to be very emotional. So for example, when there is up, it's way up. When there is down, it's way down. So the same situation, this down will go way down, the up will go way up. So this way, the duality. So when somebody is, whenever there is happiness, they're just so elated. They're jumping up and down in joy. And when something goes wrong, if they go to work and their boss appreciates them, they feel, oh, this is the best job in the world, I love it. And next day, their boss gives them some feedback. Oh, terrible job, why did I even take it? I hate this. So it can happen even in relationships. Now one day, you say, I can't live without you. And the next day, I can't live with you. So in general, the externals, they affect us internally. But if the externals affect us too much, then basically this itself is not depression, but this is a person who is emotionally volatile. So in their internals, they are emotionally volatile. And that makes the person vulnerable to depression. Now when depression happens, maybe that person was happy and some good thing happened. But then, even if some good things happen, the consciousness keeps going downwards. Even when the bad happens, naturally we'll feel bad. But even when something good happens, still a person keeps feeling gloomy. So when this happens, we could say that the person is going on a depressive route. So I'll talk about three things. So one is, I have lost. So there is competition, we try to achieve something. It might be a job, it might be a raise, it might be a relationship, whatever, I have lost. No, that itself is distressing. But even worse is, I am lost. Where it is not just the external that I lost, but I myself feel directionless. And the worst among these is, I am a loser. So generally when we come in this zone is a zone of depression. Even if I have lost, I can spring back. Even if I am lost, okay, I can find my way back. But when I start feeling that I am a loser, then what is the point of even trying? It's never going to improve. So we could talk about this, in these three things, progressive, or you can say regressive, the regression of our emotions. So it's more like, we can call this the regression means downward journey in self-conception, how we see ourselves. So we were looking at it from this perspective. Okay, am I audible to everyone? Because when I look down, this is going off a little bit. Just okay, that should be enough. Thank you. So broadly speaking, when we function in life, there are three things. There is I'll explain this, there is the desirer, the person who desires. Then there is the desire. And then there is the desirable. There is something desirable out there and we want it. Now if we don't get it, we feel bad. So, when we don't get the desirable, that is when we have the idea, I have lost. I wanted this job, I wanted this relationship, I wanted this raise, whatever it is. Now, that is bad enough. But when we lose the desire itself, that is, I am lost. Okay, I just don't have the desire to do anything. So that is going much, much closer to the core self. And here it is, I am a loser. So when this comes up, That is when it's not just external, but it has become very much internalized. So that's when it becomes a case of acute depression. When it's not just that we lost a desirable, it's not just when we lost the desire, but it's just that we lost confidence in ourselves. We lost our own healthy relationship with ourselves. So we had a question? Okay. So throughout this session, if at any time you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I'll feel free to not answer. What I mean is that if the question is not immediately relevant, or if it's going to be answered in the next part of the session, I will not answer it that time, but otherwise I'll answer. So we will talk about this in these three terms. Now, the desired, desirer, the desire, and the desirable. So we can try to address depression at these three levels. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the mentality that leads to depression when he talks about, in 1835 in the Bhagavad Gita, he calls it as determination in the mode of ignorance. Yaya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madamevacha na vimunchati durmedha dhruti sa parthatamasi. So it's interesting, Krishna uses the word determination. Normally we think of it as positive. But here, this determination in the mode of ignorance is more like obstinacy. It is holding on to the negative, but not being able to let go of the negative. And in this case, mostly negative is self-defeating thought patterns. So, it's yaya swapnam bhayam shokam, holding on to self-defeating thought patterns. And now, why might we hold on to it? That's what we will discuss later. So Krishna used several characteristics. He says, yaya swapnam. There is a lot of daydreaming. And normally daydreaming is not associated with depression, but the idea is, if only I had been like this, if only I had been taller, if only I had been higher, better IQ, if I had only been wealthier, if I was only more fluent. So all kinds of daydreaming. I'm not audible or something? Okay. I'm audible, okay. Yaya swapnam bhayam. There is dreading. This may go wrong, that may go wrong. Yaya swapnam bhayam shokam. Shokam is lamenting. So, yeah? In?
Or whatever. So is that daydreaming, and is that something
Okay.
which is like a self-defeating
That's a good question,
process?
yeah. So, I was going to address that. See, it's like not so much what we think about, but how we think about it. Which is, for example, somebody thinks about the past. Now, we can be thinking about the past, there is lamenting about the past, and there's learning from the past. So the two are both about the past, but they are very different. We could say, when we are lamenting, it is almost like our mind is going on an auto replay. We are not even in control. We're just passively watching a dark movie replaying all the bad things that have happened in our life. But when we are learning, we are conscious. We are in charge, and we are taking our mind backwards. And put it another way, the Gita says that the self is three level. This is a part that we'll talk later. That we'll talk about desirer, desire, and desirable. So, who or what is the desirer? So the Gita says that the self has three levels. We often think of ourselves as the body. The body is a part of who we are, but beyond the body is the mind. And beyond the mind is our spiritual side, the soul. So it's a three-level system. If you compare it to computer system, it would be the hardware, the software, and the user. So now we could, in one sense, just for visualization, we could decouple all of them. So if say, this is the soul, the mind, and the body. When we are having, let me put it this way over here, the soul is here, the mind is here. Generally, all this depression is primarily what is going on inside us. Everybody faces difficulties, but it's how the difficulties impact us that causes depression. So let's, for the time being, put the body outside, put the body aside, and look at the, so if this is the present, this is the past, and this is the future. So now, if I as the self am in control, and then we take the mind to the past, then that is learning. Similarly, if we take it to the future, that is visualizing. That could be planning. Now this is quite helpful. When we visualize, okay, what would I like to be? How would I like to go about doing it? But on the other hand, if the mind is in control and the mind is taking us backwards, that means it's just like a dark movie going on in our mind and you're just passively watching it. Then this is lamenting. Similarly, this is the daydreaming that the Gita is referring to. Here basically, what we are desiring, there is very little connection with reality. That means, say, if I'm short and I desire to be tall, and I keep thinking, oh, if only I were tall, if only I were tall, if only I were tall. And then that, we're not, first of all, we're not able to do anything. We can't really change our height after we grow up. We can't change it, and nor are we doing anything to change it. So then in that case, that kind of idle fantasizing, that only makes a person start loathing themselves more and more. Why am I not like that? So this is more of a destructive question. Why am I not like that? Whereas this is more of a constructive charting of a path. This is how I can become like that. So we are visualizing something so that we can go in that direction. That's not definitely associated with depression. In fact, that is a way out of depression. Does it address your question? Thank you. So, Krishna, we were discussing about the various characteristics Krishna gives of a depressive mindset. So, I talked about ya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madamevacha. So, he says, so beyond lamenting is more about specific events. Oh, this went wrong, that went wrong. Shadam madamevacha. Then there is moroseness. Moroseness is more habitual. It's like you don't need a cause to feel bad. Let's say if somebody lost their job or they had a breakup in their relationship. After that they feel bad. Well, I don't think that can be called depression. It's just that, okay, we had a knockdown in life and we are feeling bad about it. That's just a natural response to life. But when there is habitual negativity, that is moroseness. And then, ya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madamevacha. Madam, in general, it refers to intoxication, but more generally, it refers to escapism. Intoxication is a way of escaping from real life. People can do drugs nowadays. The social media. Nowadays, people just go and watch TV. See, entertainment has always been a part of human society, human history. But for most people, if you consider how it has worked, entertainment in the past, it was a break from real life. Okay, I need some change. I'll go and maybe watch some play or read some book or go for outing or something like that. Or I'll myself play. But now, in the present, often for entertainment, what is this? Real life is a break from entertainment. So for many people, their virtual life is the real life for them. They treat it as more real. I saw one, you could say cartoon, whatever. I saw one man is telling another person, yesterday my broadband Wi-Fi went down, so I spent some time with my family. They seem like nice people. It's like you don't even know them. So it is basically entertainment can be just a refreshing break from life's rigor, or it can be a form of escapism, where one just wants to run away from life. And so even that compulsive entertainment, compulsion for entertainment, that could also be associated with a destructive thought pattern. So now, we're talking about the desirer. What the Gita tells us is that if we understand this three-level conception of the self, the body, mind, and soul. Sorry, let's put it the other way. So the soul, mind, and body. So for most of us, we self-identify either with our body or with our mind. When we self-identify with our body, then nobody can say that they are perfectly happy with the body that they have. I may be too fair, I may be too dark, I may be too tall, I may be too short, I may be too thin, I may be too fat, whatever it is. Everyone has some issues. So when our self-understanding is reduced to our body alone, then we start feeling that, oh, okay, if I'm not good looking enough, if I'm not smart enough, then I start feeling inadequate. Or if we identify with our mind too much. Now, some people tend to think negative. Now, negative thinking is itself not a bad thing. This is very important to understand. For somebody who is likely to get depressed, see, negative thinking is not a bad thing. Actually, negative thinking is also a gift. What do you mean by a gift? See, there are many situations in life where so negative thinking, it can be a burden, but it can also be a gift. What do I mean by a gift? There are many situations in life where the ability to think negative can be a lifesaver. Every time when we go by flight, they tell all the security instructions, the safety instructions. Now, when flights were invented, it is not that the first time all these problems came up. But people visualized, okay, what could go wrong? Okay, if this goes wrong, what can we do? This goes wrong, what can we do? Suppose somebody is a very positive thinker. There is a barren wasteland, we'll build a skyscraper over it. Say, what a positive thinker. Yeah, great. But if you actually have to have a functional building, somebody also has to think negative. Okay, what happens if there is fire? What happens if the electricity goes off? What if this happens? What if that happens? And then that building will actually be safe to live in. And not everybody has the capacity to think negative. Not everybody can visualize what all will go wrong. Similarly, if say I'm one of my services writing a book, I write books. Now in writing, the author is the creative. You could say author is more optimistic kind of person. Yeah? Hey, this idea I'll write on, this idea I'll write on, this idea works. But there's the editor. The editor says, hey, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't work. Now, only those people can actually be good editors who are good at finding things that don't work. And in general, those who are good editors are not good authors. Because when they are good at editing, they keep editing themselves also. When they write something, hey, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. So they have to make, if an editor has to write a book, editor has to consciously put aside their creative side of the brain. Sorry, the critical side of the brain, and let their creative side come out. So negative thinking can be an ability. See, when is it a gift? When it is used purposefully. Purposefully means for a particular purpose. But it becomes a burden when it becomes when it gets auto-activated. That means even when there is no need, that's not your job. At that time, if somebody constantly starts finding faults, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then they start finding faults with the world, then they start finding faults with themselves. So the capacity to think negative is good. The problem is not thinking negatively. The problem is being unable to stop thinking negatively. So going back, so I talked about how the body, the misidentification may lead to height or complexion or whatever. So with respect to the mind, the identification may say a person may be a negative thinker. So negative thinking. So when we identify with our mind, then we get carried away by whatever thought comes in. And if the mind tends to think negative, then we get swept away by negative thinking. But if I understand that I am not my mind tends to think negative. And that negative thinking can be used. But it should not be like a switch that is permanently on. There's a time when to turn it on, there's a time when to turn it off. So it's that, in one sense, I as the self am here, and my mind is here. So then I can look at my mind and look through my mind. But I'm aware, this is the tendency of my mind. So if I'm aware that I tend to think negative about things, then maybe I can have some friend who thinks more positive, and then we can both talk and then come to a more grounded, a more holistic understanding of how things are. But that means, say, if I am here and there's another person over here, this is a friend. So we look at the situation, and this person says is an optimist. That person is a positive thinker. And our mind is a negative thinker. Now when you say that person is a positive thinker, that means their mind is a positive thinker. So what we do is, okay, you are looking at it from this way, now let's talk. This is what my mind is saying, and this is what you are saying. Let's see what is the reality. So this way, when one of the ways to disidentify, not misidentify, but disidentify, distance ourselves. So we want to increase this, to disidentify with our mind, is to have some close friends. Even one close friend. Normally, everyone we look at through the filter of our mind. If somebody speaks very nicely with us, then the first thought that comes in our mind is, what does this person want from me? Why is this person talking so nicely with me? Now, it could be that that person has some agenda. It could also be that person is just a nice person. Who knows? We don't know. But our mind tends to be suspicious. But if we know, yeah, this person is my friend, this person is my well-wisher, and this person is speaking, let me give them a hearing. So that way, to the extent we understand that we are a spiritual being, that our mind may have some deficiencies, our body may have some deficiencies, but we as spiritual beings are beyond those. We as spiritual beings are the users of our body-mind machine. And yes, they have some defects, but they also have the body-mind machine, the body and mind have some defects, the body and mind also have some strengths. But I am not those. So at least that third level, I am a loser. No, it may be I am lost and I don't know what to do. I tend to think negative, okay, but that's not me, that's my mind. I am separate from it. So, spirituality is meant to help us expand our understanding of the self. In general, if we consider the difference between materialism and spirituality, so overall materialism shrinks our sense of ourself, of the self. Our conception of the self becomes very shrunk. I saw an ad which said, you are your car. It is not even that your car determines your status in life or something like that. You are your car. So in Sanskrit, this can be called as ahankar. So, aham, I am my car, ahankar. So this is misidentification. So materialism shrinks our sense of self to just one particular thing. It may be if we are in a society where a lot of academic achievement is emphasized, then our sense of self gets shrunk to our grades, to our marks. If we live in a society where a person's financial status becomes their sole determiner, becomes their sole definer, then our sense of self gets reduced to our self-worth becomes equated with our net worth. But that is an atrocity. A person's value is not determined by how much they earn. There can be people who do lot for the world from a material perspective, but they may not be earning much. So materialism shrinks our conception of the self. In contrast, spirituality expands our understanding of the self. And this is very helpful. So at least we have a core foundation of security. Whatever defects my body, mind, machine may have, I as a soul am beyond those. The soul is always pure. The soul is always filled with positive potential. The soul is a part of the divine. And that's why there is a lot of untapped potential within the soul. And to the extent we identify ourselves with the soul is pure. Pure means we may all have some negative habits, we may all have some unhealthy behavioral patterns, but the soul is not affected by those. The soul has positive potential. There is much that is not yet manifest, untapped ability that are present in the soul. And then the soul is also, it is divine as a part of divinity. So the understanding that we are souls, it's not just a philosophical concept. Yes, it's a philosophical teaching or a truth, but it also has profound psychological impact. Psychological impact on how we see ourselves. Yes, please. we should feel worthless. Okay? That's a good point. Every statement is made in a particular context. Say, for example, sometimes we say, I am a fallen soul. You've heard the statement? I'm a fallen soul. Sometimes I'm not just a fallen soul, I am the most fallen soul, you may say. But when we say this, sometimes what happens is, this fallen becomes so big and the soul almost gets cancelled. So it's just, I am fallen. No, whether fallen or elevated, you are a soul. And the soul is always pure. The soul is always a part of God. In the Ramayana, it is described that after Ravan was killed, Vibhishan was the only surviving member of Ravan's family, and Vibhishan had to perform the last rites. And Vibhishan became pensive and he told Ram, I don't think I can perform his last rites. He says he was an evil soul. He caused unbearable angst to countless people. And on top of that, he abducted your consort. He does not deserve the last rites to be performed for him. So Lord Ram became very grave and he said that, O Vibhishan, the soul is always pure. Whatever actions he did, he was punished for it. He died for it now. Now, let his soul go onward to the next destination. Don't let resentment for what he did at the physical level stop you from doing your duty at the spiritual level. So this is the Lord's statement. Now, when we talk about scripture saying that we are fallen or we are worthless, let's look at what the context is. The first thing is, if you start at the basic level in the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita says, be steady amidst happiness and distress. The Gita's focus is not that you are worthless. The Gita's focus is, good and bad things will happen, but stay steady. Dukkheshva nudvignamana, sukheshu vigataspruha. So it's something like, I was talking about dualities earlier. So say, these are external ups and downs. So the test of our spirituality is that the effects become lesser and lesser. Yes, there will be some effect, but not too much. Amid dualities, we stay steady. So steadiness. Steadiness means, this doesn't affect me too much. Whether it is good or it is bad, it doesn't affect me. Now this is, we could say, foundational spirituality. This is the ABC of spirituality at one level. Now beyond that, if we consider for those who are very devoted, if somebody is a great devotee, for them, life's ups and downs have become insignificant. They just don't matter. For them, Krishna and Krishna's love, that is the supreme reality. So they feel that Krishna has done so much for me. Krishna has been so merciful to me, that what have I done to reciprocate with him? I have not done anything in reciprocation. And that is why they feel worthless in relationship with Krishna. But that does not affect their view of the world. I just came from Vancouver to Toronto yesterday. So yesterday I was sitting in the window seat in the flight right next to the wing of the plane. Now, if you have ever sat over there, and you look at the vast sky, it appears as if the plane is not moving at all. The sky is so big that as compared to the vastness of the sky, you look at the plane seems to go on for like a morning walk. Just gently moving through. Only if you look at the map, you say it's going at 500 miles an hour. And then when the plane comes closer and closer to the ground, From far high up, we can't even see the ground much. All the ground also seems the same and it seems to move very slowly. But when you come closer to the ground, then we start seeing, that just a river is just whizzing by, a giant skyscraper, they're just like specks, they're just whizzing by. But at that time, we start seeing how fast the plane is moving. So the view from high up is not the same as the view from below. So similarly, for great devotees, they, in relationship with Krishna, in relationship with the representatives of Krishna, like the spiritual master, they feel, I know nothing. I have received so much mercy, I have done nothing in reciprocation. So that feeling of worthlessness or feeling of insignificance, that is in relationship with Krishna. The same Srila Prabhupada, who, when he came to America, he signed, he says, the fallen, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He says, Bhakti nahi vidya nahi, Bhakti nahi veda nahi jani. I don't have any devotion, I don't have any knowledge. Prabhupada felt that in his communion with Krishna. But when he was giving talks, he was not constantly saying, oh, I have no knowledge, I have no devotion. He was focused on his service to Krishna. And his service to Krishna, he was very purposeful, he was very confident. So our Krishna consciousness, when we become deeply immersed in Krishna consciousness, in front of Krishna I am nothing. But in service to Krishna, I will be whatever I am meant to be. So that feeling of worthlessness is meant to help us appreciate more the greatness of Krishna. It is not meant to be simply beating ourselves down. I am worthless, I am worthless, I am worthless. So I am worthless without Krishna. But I am never without Krishna. Because Krishna is always in my heart with me. So that humility is actually very different from a chronic sense of worthlessness. That if that's what is coming to us in our bhakti, then we are misunderstanding and bhakti, and that is not very healthy for us psychologically. As devotees, our understanding of our spirituality, our understanding that we are all parts of Krishna, should actually infuse us with confidence and purpose. Confidence that Krishna is with me, and purpose that Krishna has some plan for me. My existence is for some purpose. So, just to conclude this point, see, humility is not about devaluing ourselves. Although it can sometimes seem like that. It is more about valuing something bigger than ourselves. That there is, I may be small, but Krishna is big. And Krishna has accepted me as his part. Therefore, I will serve Krishna. So if we focus on just devaluing ourselves, then that is not humility, that is actually toxicity. So in the wherever there are expressions in the bhakti literature that I am worthless, I am fallen, I am sinful, but that is followed by a great determination to serve Krishna. So another way to understand it is like if a patient is sick, then the patient should not be in denial that I am sick. But the patient shouldn't be thinking, I am my sickness. No, I have sickness and therefore I need to take this treatment. If a patient is to be cured, there are two things required. The patient, first thing is admission of sickness. But after that, there also has to be dedication to the treatment. And dedication to the treatment includes confidence in the treatment. And not just confidence that the treatment works, but the treatment will work for me also. And in that sense, the person has faith in their own body's capacity to rebound, to heal itself. So when we hear in scriptures the statements about people being fallen, we often focus only on the first part, that I am fallen. But that's like a person admitting, I'm sick. But we will see, if we see the complete picture of the lives of the devotees, they are very confident in Krishna. And Krishna's service, they can do extraordinarily courageous things. Prabhupada at the age of 70, all alone came from India to America. So that is not that is not the characteristic of a person who literally thinks I am worthless. Okay? Thank you. Yes, please.
Around body, mind and soul.
Yeah.
This is about the mind piece.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I was wondering if emotions are our mind's responses to different situations. That's the first question. And the second is that you spoke about being steady in happiness and distress. So how is that different from being emotionless? That's my second question.
Okay. Can you repeat the first one? Our emotions are responses.
Mind's responses to situations.
Okay, yes. See, emotions can be seen in two ways. One is, of course, the mind's responses to situations. And when we see them in this way, to some extent, they are unavoidable. It's like the body can respond to situations. If somebody says right now, I'm feeling cold, will you tell them, don't feel cold? What do you mean, don't feel cold? Not I'm choosing to feel cold, I'm feeling cold. Isn't it? So now different people have, you could say, different levels of thermal tolerance. A slight drop in temperature, some people just can't tolerate it. You know, some other people, they seem to have the skin of a polar bear. Even when it's freezing cold, they seem to just wear a single cloth and they go out and nothing seems to happen. So different people's bodies are different. So the body responds in different ways. Similarly, the mind responds in different ways. So that is one way of looking at it. And this can be good for self-acceptance. Like I earlier said, that some minds tend to think negative. So yeah, that's just the way my mind works. Something goes wrong, mind starts thinking, oh, what else may go wrong? So this is the way my mind thinks, and there's no need to feel too bad about it. Yeah, that's the way. It's the mind's response to situations. At the same time, emotions can also be our choices in response to the mind's responses. And this might seem a little complicated. I'll make it a little simple. What I mean is, an emotion comes up within us. It is for us to choose whether we act on that emotion or we neglect that emotion. I was somewhere, maybe probably London, I don't remember. So a couple came to me, and the wife was telling me, my husband has anger issues. And the husband was very apologetic. He said, I don't know. I don't want to get angry, but when I get angry, I start speaking foul words. He says, I've not been physically abusive, but I'm afraid I'll become like that. But I just can't control my anger. I said, you really can't control your anger? He says, no, I can't. I said, where do you work? He says, I work in software. Okay. How is your boss? He said, quite demanding. Okay. He says, do you get angry at your boss sometimes? He says, I actually asked, do you get upset with your boss sometimes? He says, yeah, many times. He says, do you yell at your boss? He looked at me as if I was crazy. Yes, obviously, I can't yell at my boss. He said, if I yell at my boss, then I'll have no job after that, isn't it? So, and I told him, see, that means you get angry with the boss, but you don't express your anger. That means you have the capacity to control your anger. And how do you have that capacity? By you are convinced that your job is important. That expressing anger is not as important as protecting my job. So your job is like a non-negotiable for you. And because the job is non-negotiable, so your anger becomes negotiable. But on the other hand, you're thinking if you get angry with your family, okay, they'll just get a little upset, they'll get a little annoyed. You're thinking that is negotiable. But if your family is important for you, you need to treat that also as non-negotiable. So the reason I'm giving this as an example is that we can treat our mind, say this is the soul, and say this is the mind. So we could say the mind is like an inner screen. And on that inner screen, various notifications may pop up. Something pops up, like anger pops up over there. I'm feeling irritated with this person. So now when we dwell on it, it's like a notification pops up. If we dwell on it, then what happens? It zooms out. It fills the consciousness. But if we don't dwell on it, then it will come, it will stay, it will go. So it's like, if we have something else to focus on, this is the soul, this is the mind, and if we have something else that is meaningful to focus on, then that emotion, even if it is there, it will become tiny. Yeah, I felt, suppose we are doing some important, very urgent work, and somebody makes some annoying statement, some sarcastic statement. Sometimes you might just snap and yell at that person. If you really focus on the work, just forget, I don't have time for this right now. You may say, just focus on something else. So, in one sense, the external situations trigger certain responses within the mind that we can't control. But if we understand I am different from my mind, then I decide whether to dwell on that or not. So another way to understand this is, let's consider the word thought. Now we use it in two different ways. I just got a thought. And I have given this a lot of thought. Are they the same meanings? Can you say what is the difference between the two of them? Small circle and bigger circle, okay. You internalize what we are discussing. Nice. Yeah. Second one is more deeper, yes. Yes. So it's like you can say, I just got a thought. It's like if this is my, let's put it this way. If this is my mind, then either due to some external stimulus or due to some internal recollection. So it could be due to perception from outside or recollection from inside. It's basically something that popped up. This is, I got a thought. But when I have given this a lot of thought, that means if this is the mind, this is here. So I have focused on this, and then it has become big. So small circle and big circle, as you rightly said. So now you could combine these two and say that not every thought merits thought. Not everything that pops up inside us deserves to be contemplated on. The same applies to our emotions. Not every thought merits thought. So similarly, not every emotion merits our attention. So right now you're sitting over here and maybe the chair is not the most comfortable, or you're sitting on the floor, it's not very comfortable. So you might be feeling a little uncomfortable, but you're also interested in the subject. Okay, this discomfort is there, but it's not that for the rest of my life I have to sit like this. Maybe for a short time this talk is going on, I can bear it. So it pops up and then you put it aside. So that way, our emotions are both those things. And to the extent we see them as second, to that extent we have some control. If we see them as first, then we have no control. So you could say the first understanding, this leads to self-acceptance. Yeah, sometimes I see this person, sometimes some people just seem to bring out the worst within us. As soon as we see them, we just get annoyed. We get irritated. And there are two kinds of people. Some people bring happiness wherever they go, and some bring happiness whenever they go. And sometimes you think it's about those people, but often it is our reaction to those people. Sometimes we feel very happy when somebody goes away, but if somebody else feels unhappy, oh, they're gone away. It's subjective also. But the point is, if we have a certain level of culture, a certain level of discipline, we are not going to be rude in front of that person. You would much rather that meeting end and they go their way, we go our way. But while we are interacting, we can tolerate, we can bear. So this is what leads to self-transformation. When we see emotions as also our choices in response to the mind's responses. Okay, thank you. What is the second part of your question? Okay, being steady, is it being same as being unemotional? Well, when the Gita uses the word steady, it's not so much absence of emotion. That would be unemotional or even cold-hearted. That is not what the Gita has in mind. More it is absence of control by emotions. Now, emotions are an important part of who we are. And to have no emotions can be a serious problem. Say suppose we are going by a school area and there we see some big bully terrorizing some small kid. And if seeing that, we don't feel anything at all. If we don't feel anger, we don't feel concern, then there's something wrong with us, something missing with us. There are times when anger is a good thing. And the absence of anger could be a bad thing. Now, of course, that does not mean that we go and start trying to beat up the bully. No, there's the emotion of anger and there's the action response. The two are separate things. So what the Gita is saying is that not that we shouldn't have emotions. Even when the Gita says, Dukkheshva anudvigna manaha, that do not be dejected when something bad happens. It is not telling us, don't see things itself as bad. It's acknowledging bad things happen, good things happen. But don't get carried away by them. So, yes, our emotions are there. When we say something is good, something is bad, definitely there's some level of emotion involved in it. Hey, this is nice. This is not so nice. But the Gita is saying, don't get carried away. Don't be dejected when bad things happen. So it's absence of control by emotions. Emotions are one resource in our decision-making process. But when emotions become the source of our decision-making process, they solely determine our decision. That's when the emotions are a problem. We consider emotions, they are a resource for decision-making. If we want to do something, we need to consult. Do I feel inspired to do this? What is my emotional response to that? As a resource, they are good. But the emotions become the source of our decision-making. Then we will be very unstable. Because, as we started by discussing, today I love something, tomorrow I hate something. So we can't just act that way. So this is unhealthy. Okay? So, I don't want to depress you by giving a long class. You've had a lot of questions. I'll just try to complete the remaining 2 points. The desirer part was the most important part within our discussion. Sure.
Like if I say we are
practitioners or maybe madhyam adhikaris, so we may not be that steady. Sometimes it happens that we are carried away with the emotions, and those emotions can be the source of our decision making. So in that case, how we should motivate ourselves, because we are not at the level of Kunti Maharani that we ask Krishna that give us more pain and we'll remember Krishna. At that time, sometimes our Krishna consciousness, or maybe the schedules which we set for our daily routine for Krishna consciousness, even that is hampered. Our motivation goes down. So in such situations, what a practitioner should do. So even you can address later.
Yes. In one sense, we're asking questions about the next part. So thank you. So we're talking about desire. Now I will address that question and then come back to the part of desire. See, when you talk about emotional regulation, so when things go wrong, it's natural that we will feel disheartened. We'll feel, when things go down, naturally we'll feel down. That's fair enough. We can't expect ourselves to be like robots. But we don't want, like say, if the external is like this, we don't want it to be like this, internal. We would prefer that it is something, okay, it goes up, it's modest, it's less than. So now how do we do that? There are two main things for this. One is our bonds and the other is our boundaries. Now what do I mean by bonds and boundaries? See, again, I talked earlier about the example of anger. Everybody gets angry. Now some people, when they get angry, they may raise their voice. But they will not speak foul words. They will not use foul language. Some people may use foul language, but they will not become physical. They will not punch or slap. Some people may slap or punch, but they will not take up a knife. Some people may take up a knife, but they will not take up a gun. Some people, when they get angry, they might just take a machine gun and just go around shooting people. So everybody has some boundaries. And it's important for us to define first our boundaries and then defend our boundaries. And we all have these boundaries. Okay, no matter what happens, this is what I will never do. Okay, when I'm in trouble, I might lie. But I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to rob. We all have boundaries like that. So it is important that these boundaries be defined by us and defended by us. That means that, now this to some extent happens by our cultural upbringing. Many of these kids who in America go on school shooting sprees, it's horrifying. But if you look at their family history, most of them have broken families. So as children, they were never taught any boundaries. They're not taught how to process anger, how to process resentment. So we all need boundaries. And to some extent, the practice of bhakti itself gives us certain boundaries. So now, to the extent we intellectually and individually accept those boundaries, then that is what keeps us within a particular framework. That's why, like this person, for him the boundary with the anger was, I don't want to lose my job. That was a boundary. So we have some boundaries, we just need to define them. And then, again, when provocation comes, no, I'm not going to do this. So that's one thing. The boundaries will keep us within certain limits. And now bonds refer to basically, in one sense, if we consider the road of life, the bond is about where we want to go. And the boundary is like the road. If you're on a road, where do I want to go? That's my direction, that's my destination, that's our bond. And the boundary is, every road has some side walls. Okay, we don't veer off the road. So it's like that. So this is the boundary. In the Ramayana, after Ram is exiled and Dashrath departs from the world heartbroken, then Bharat and Shatrughna come back and they see the whole of Ayodhya is devastated. They are themselves horrified to know what has happened. And then somehow Bharat pulls himself together, Bharat and Shatrughna, Shatrughna pull themselves together and then they perform the last rites of their father. After they're coming out, the courtier calls Bharat and Bharat is talking. So Shatrughna moves on. Now as Shatrughna is moving towards his palace, he sees Manthara coming out of the palace of Kaikeyi. And Manthara is wearing very expensive silk clothes and costly jewelry. Kaikeyi has rewarded her profusely. Of course, by now Kaikeyi is repentant. But before that, she had already rewarded him. So at that time, when Shatrughna sees Manthara, all the heavy emotion that is there in his heart, his anger at what happened, his agony at the father's departure, it all just bursts. And he rushes towards Manthara in anger. And he catches her by clothes and starts shaking her violently. He says, "You are the cause of the agony that has drowned the whole of our kingdom. You are the cause of the destruction of our family." And he yells at her, she screams. And she screams and Kaikeyi comes running out. Kaikeyi sees what is happening and she says, "Shatrughna, stop." But Shatrughna is extremely angry. He's just not, he's still shaking her, he says. And at that time Bharat comes over there. And Kaikeyi turns to Bharat, she thinks, at least he's my son. "Bharat, tell Shatrughna to stop." And Bharat is also angry with Kaikeyi. Bharat doesn't even look at Kaikeyi. And he says, "Shatrughna, what you are doing with Manthara, I have felt like doing with Kaikeyi." Kaikeyi is aghast to hear this. But he said, "Whenever that thought came in my mind, it stopped when I thought of Ram." He said, "We want Ram to come back to this kingdom. If we do anything to hurt Manthara or Kaikeyi, and Ram will never forgive us. Therefore, even if they don't deserve our forgiveness, we want Ram back. Let him go. Let her go." As soon as Shatrughna hears that, he immediately lets Manthara go. So for him, his anger at Manthara and Kaikeyi was justified. But more than his anger towards Manthara was his love and service attitude towards Ram. So for us, we need to have healthy bonds. So to the extent we have those bonds which bring a sense of responsibility for us, then the circumstances will cause provocations. Say, consider a mother. Suppose a young woman who is a young mother, say she is herself afraid of darkness and suddenly the power goes off. And normally she would be very scared. But if she has a small child and the child is scared, "Mommy, I'm scared." The mother won't say, "Oh, I'm also scared." No, "Come down, lights will come back. We'll find a flashlight." So that sense of responsibility for the child, the bond with the child, will keep that fear within boundaries. So similarly for us, now the bonds can be with many people. Now the bonds alone are not enough. Whom are we bonding to, that is important. Dhritarashtra was bonded to Duryodhana. And because of that bond, he was dragged down. No, Dhritarashtra was not a really bad person. Duryodhana was a bad person. So, and Dhritarashtra could just not say no to him. So the bonds also have to be healthy bonds. Bonds that help us become better. So for example, that's why in spiritual circles, devotional circles, we talk about, if we have a devotee who has inspired us, our Shiksha Guru, our Diksha Guru, if we are in a difficult situation, we think, what should I do? That no matter what happens, I don't want to displease them. So, okay, I'm upset right now, but even if somebody has angered us, somebody has upset us, okay, I can behave like this, but the idea is, I am here and this other person is here. Now, you did something to me, so I'll do something to you. You attack, I retaliate. That could be the normal way of behaving. But for a devotee, there is always Krishna who is above. So if I think in this situation, how can I please Krishna? Or how can I at least not displease Krishna? So that bond becomes more important for us. Now, of course, for us, Krishna may not be that immediately tangible. Then it could be some senior devotee whom we respect, some elder person whom we respect, or anybody who inspires us to be a better person. So a bond like that will keep us on this right track. So as students, say if we have come to study, now when we come to a distant place, there are so many temptations. We could spend our time doing so many things. But then, if we remember, my parents are spending for my education. They have certain expectations from me. So now expectations can crush us at times. But then the expectations can also, I can't waste too much time in this. I have to do this. And I want to do this. I want to please them. But I don't want to displease them. So there could be bonds which are healthy in different forms. So we can't anticipate what provocations we'll face in future. But what we can do is, we can build our bonds and we can build our boundaries. And then whatever provocations come, we'll be able to deal with them. Okay, thank you. So this is we are discussing about the second part over here. Now generally, if I consider this is the self and this is the external world. So broadly speaking, emotion is associated with perception. Emotion is in general how we react to what we perceive outside. Whereas desire is associated with action. When we desire something, then after that we want to do something about it. So for example, say if we see a gulab jamun, hey, that's nice, that's an emotion. And I want one, that's a desire. So emotions and desires are related, but emotions in general are more reactive. They are our reactions or responses to what happens outside. And desires are more active. Of course, desires can also come as a reaction, but desires, they push us towards action. Emotions in themselves may or may not push us towards action. That is a broad difference between emotion and desire. Now, why we are discussing this is, I talked about three things in depression. There is a desirer. So we are never losers. I am always a part of Krishna, and I will always remain a part of Krishna. No matter how many bad things happen to me, no matter how many bad things I may do, still Krishna never rejects us. Krishna never abandons us. Krishna never says, I'm disgusted with you, I'll leave your heart and go away. No, Krishna is the Paramatma, is always there in every person's heart. So we are always spiritual beings. So at least that level we can avoid. I am a loser? No, I'm not. A part of Krishna, and okay, I might be going through a bad phase right now, but that bad phase will end. Now, as far as the desire is concerned, sometimes when we become spiritually minded, we may start demonizing desire itself, or give up desires. Well, that is not the right thing. Actually, spiritual growth is not about giving up desires. It is more about taking up desires. Now, of course, there are different kind of desires. If you consider Srila Prabhupada, there were many other disciples of Bhakti Thakur, Prabhupada's god brothers, who had been renounced for far longer than he had. There had been sannyasis from their childhood or youth maybe. They had studied scriptures in many ways more than him. Prabhupada had a business to run, a family to take care of. He did study a lot, but maybe not as much as. But what distinguished Prabhupada was he had the strongest desire to share Krishna Bhakti with the world. So Bhakti is, well, giving up some desire, that is true, but taking up desires is much, much more important. So that's why when we are tending to go to a depression, at that time we try to find some desire that is meaningful and start acting on that. Generally, if we just think of something beyond ourselves, okay, I'm terrible, I'm useless, I can do nothing. Okay, no problem. Come to a temple and just serve some prasad. Do something. Even if it is a simple thing, what happens, it gets us out of our head. So take up, even if it's a tiny desire, if we act on it, it will grow. If we start equating bhakti solely with giving up desires, then what are we going to do? When all of us, whatever our age may be, still we have energy, we have aspirations, we want something to look forward to. So bhakti is more about taking up desires. So what is meaningful for me? In bhakti there are many activities, and not all of them you may be attracted to. But what is meaningful for me? Maybe I am good at music, and maybe I would like to teach music to someone. And when we start doing that, when we use the desire, see, there is desire and there is meaning. Not everything meaningful is desirable for us. We may not like it. And not everything desirable is meaningful. I may have a desire to just spend hours watching Netflix. Well, what is the meaning in that? When I die, do I want to be remembered as the person who watched Netflix every day for 6 hours? No, not really. So, that there is what is desirable and what is meaningful. So, you find out something in the intersection of the two of them. What is, if it's only meaningful but we have no desire for it, then doing it will be another burden. When we are having some kind of depression or we are going toward depression, we already feel burdened. And if we have to do something for which we have no desire, then it will seem that it's another burden for us. So sometimes if somebody may say, oh, you're feeling depressed, just chant Hare Krishna. You may feel normally itself chanting is difficult for me. When I'm depressed, it's even more difficult. Okay, it's possible. But then maybe you like kirtans. So just hear some kirtans, sing some kirtans, and get out of that. Find somewhere the intersection of desire and meaning. And we start from that one place, things will grow. Now generally, meaning can seem to be like a very big philosophical thing. But meaning can very easily come by any kind of contribution to something beyond ourselves. If we are contributing in some way to something beyond ourselves, it may be, somebody, so say if devotees have some food for life program and we go and distribute food and somebody is hungry and they get some food and they are happy when they get the food. And we are a part of that. Oh, okay. We feel good about it. We try to help somebody in some way, do some service, something beyond ourselves. Generally, meaning doesn't come only by doing something for ourselves. We have as much a need to get as a need to give. It's not that we should be starving and we give food to others. We have a need for food. But the need for giving is as much as the need for getting. And especially when we are suffering from depressive state of mind, if we can find something to give, something to do that is meaningful, that will raise us up. That's with respect to desire. And then what is the last part? Sorry? Desirer we discussed. Desirable. See, remember we are discussing desire and desirable. So let's discuss. In the desirable, there are many things desirable in life. So we may desire wealth, we may desire power, we may desire fame. Nowadays for many people fame means I want 1,000,000 Insta followers. That might be people's definition of fame, whatever it is. So we have many things which are desirable for us. And when we don't get something desirable, that is when the spiral of depression begins. So this particular, when I talk about desire, it is, I am lost. Okay, I may be lost right now, but how can I find my way back? I look for this intersection is the cure for I am lost. Because, okay, I may be lost, but is there something which I can do which is desirable and meaningful? Then, from there, I can overcome that sense I am lost. Okay, this is one thing I can do. Let me start off with this. And the last, and that what we want to talk about is, I have lost. That is something which we'll all face in life. Now, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. And even if we grow spiritually, even if we mature, even if we excel, that is not going to change. It's not that just because somebody becomes a tennis champion or a sports champion, that does not necessarily mean that they will never lose. They also lose at times. But now what is desirable? There is, every activity has an external result and an internal result. For example, if a student studies, now when they study, if we consider study as an activity, then the external result is they get grades. Now that's important, no doubt. But the internal result is they get mastery of the subject. Now, the ideal situation is where we get both. We gain mastery of the subject and we get the results also. Among the two, which is more important? In the world's eyes, it's a race. So I was in Stanford just a few months ago, giving a class, and a mother and her daughter had come to meet me. They were Americans. They said that her daughter has been in Stanford for 8 years. And I was a little surprised. She says that, so what happened? She says that for 8 years, she has been in the first year. Not that she failed. She changed her subject for 8 times. I want to discover my calling. Well, you could discover your calling by going and graduating in 1 year also, isn't it? There are many people who find their calling later in life. So it's like we cannot put a pause to our life because we are not able to move forward in the right direction. Sometimes what is right and wrong, we just don't know very easily. So now in this situation, the point I was making is that, yeah, you may get grades, you may not get grades. The world will look at us from the perspective of grades. But in the long run, it doesn't really matter. Say, okay, how much suppose one graduates from a very big university, somebody else graduates from a not so big university. Maybe in the first, when you get a job, it makes a difference. But after you start working in the job, people don't really care where you graduated from. People care how much you know of the subject. So we could say both are important, but in the short term, this seems to be more important. In the short term, the external results seem to be more important. But actually in the long term, it is the internal results that are more important. So, for us, many times the external results are not so much in our control. They are determined by factors which are beyond us. There are so many things which can determine, which cause the results to go in a particular way. Say in the game like cricket, a batsman may be playing very well, and the batsman is leading the team to victory. But suppose it rains, and the match gets washed out. The batsman will feel bad. But if the batsman was batting well, they did their part. And the team management, the team leadership will see, okay, this batsman did a good job. Maybe then the victory didn't come, But in terms of earning the trust of the team, um, earning credit with the team members, yes, you will get that. So if we live in a world which fixates too much on external results, and often the external results are not so much in our control, but the internal results are in our control. Einstein, there are many quotes that are attributed to Einstein. How many of them actually he said, it may be open to debate, but that's just the way with many historical figures. So Einstein is said to have said that be a person of values, not of success. That everybody wants success in life, but values are the foundation of success. So in the Bhagavad Gita says, Karmanneva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. He said, Krishna is telling, don't be attached to the results. Now he doesn't mean don't care for the results. That's not the point. Unless we have something to achieve. Arjuna, when he fought the war, he wanted to win the war. But the point is that Krishna was telling Arjuna that you alone don't determine the results. So there's a difference between aims and results. So Krishna is not saying don't have goals, don't set aims. So the two are different. What is the difference? Aims come before the action. Results come after the action. So before the action, have aims, set goals. And by setting goals, that will inspire us to do our best. But after we have done our best, if the results don't come out, we accept that. Sometimes we feel, why is it like that? Why is it that I work so hard and I don't get results? Well, if we look at life in the long run, sometimes it happens that we say, we put in an effort of 100 and we seem to get a result of 10. The result is far less than what the effort we put in. But if we look at life overall, there are also times when we put in the effort of 10 and we get the result of 100. That is what we sometimes call as a lucky break. So, we might just be among 100 people who apply for a job, but somehow things work out and we get a job. You could say, I deserved it. Yeah, I deserved it, maybe. But still, it could have gone so many other ways. So in life, sometimes we'll get more than what we deserve. And sometimes we'll get less than what we deserve. So instead of focusing so much on what we get, we focus on what we are giving, what effort we are putting in. So karmanneva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That is focus on your effort. So that's the internal result. If I am trying to become a better person, if one relationship doesn't work out so well, okay, don't try to make it work. But if it doesn't work out, don't let it become a statement about yourself. Try to become someone you would like to be with. If we become like someone whom we would like to be with, others would also want to be with us. So focus on the internal result. We change our conception of what is desirable. So, in the short-term vision, life is seen like a 100-meter sprint. Now, every race I have to win. Yeah, we may want to win every race, but if our whole life is reduced to running the rat race, there's a problem with the rat race. That is that even if you win the race, you still remain a rat. Nothing really changes. But we see life not so much as a 100-meter sprint as a 100-mile marathon. So in a marathon, who is first right in the beginning doesn't matter. Who keeps running matters. And for the really important things in life, we will find that in the long run, who has that perseverance, who has that grit, who has that resilience, that is the person who succeeds. So we change our understanding of what is desirable. What is desirable is not so much the external results, but the internal results. And in the ultimate analysis, the external result is what we get in the world. The internal result is what we get in our heart. When we are practicing bhakti, We want to serve Krishna. We want to do wonderful things for him in this world also. But ultimately, internally, if Krishna is pleased with us, he gives his mercy to us. We may not succeed externally, but still we will be content internally. And that's how, even when there is no external success, still there can be internal happiness because of that connection with Krishna. In one sense, the Bhagavad Gita is a discussion between Krishna and Arjuna. So that discussion begins, it ends at 18.73. But after that, there are 5 verses which go on. And these 5 verses are spoken by Sanjay. So if you consider the Gita's message, Krishna spoke to Arjuna, and that was a success. And Arjuna's heart was transformed. Arjuna became convinced. The same message was spoken by Sanjay to Dhritarashtra. And there was no success over there. Because Dhritarashtra still remained attached. But, although there was no change in Dhritarashtra, there was a change in Sanjay. And that change is, if you look at the 76th and 77th verses, Sanjay says, as I am remembering Krishna's message, and as I am remembering Krishna's form, I am feeling enriched. Rajan samsnutya samvadamim adbhutam keshavarjuna yo punyam rishyami cha muhurmuhu. He's saying that I am thrilled internally because of my remembrance of Krishna. So, devotion, in one sense, is the ultimate internal result. There can be many, there can be values of honesty, hard work, patience. All these values can stand us in good stead. And all these are internal results. But the biggest internal result is devotion. Why? Devotion makes our happiness independent of our success. That Sanjay, he didn't get success in terms of persuading Dhritarashtra. But still, his remembrance of Krishna, that itself gave him happiness. So that's what happens to us if we have devotion. When Srila Prabhupada came to America, in one sense, his whole lifetime had been one setback after another after another. He had tried so many things in his efforts to share Krishna Bhakti, and none of that had really worked. Now, when Srila Prabhupada came in 1966, the last 11 years, there was a miraculous success. Built 108 temples, wrote over 70 books, inspired millions of people. But even when none of that was there, when Srila Prabhupada was just a lonely old man walking alone on the streets of New York, at that time also the people who met him, they saw that he was so strikingly and simply happy. Just speaking about Krishna, writing about Krishna, worshipping Krishna. So, Prabhupada's happiness was not dependent on his success because he was enriched by devotion. And of course, success came eventually, but his happiness was not dependent on that. And that's why if we elevate our understanding of what is desirable is just the inner values, the inner growth, and the ultimate inner value of devotion, then that can raise us above being too buffeted when I have lost. I've lost something external, but by my endeavors, I have gained something internal. And I will always be on the path of gaining. In bhakti, if we are just trying to serve Krishna, we are growing in bhakti. The external results don't matter so much for Krishna. What matters is our heart. And in that sense, our devotion can be the ultimate antidote to depression. The greater our devotion, the lesser will be our vulnerability to depression. So I'll summarize. We discussed about how to deal with depression when the darkness points us towards light. So I talked about depression at 3 levels. That I have lost. Then, what is second? I am lost. And third is, I am a loser. So these three we associated with, I have lost is associated with the desirable object. I didn't get it. I am lost is associated with desire itself. I just don't know what to do. Whereas I am a loser is associated with the desirer, that I am myself worthless. And then we discussed about how we can deal with all of these. So we started with the desirer, that if we understand our spirituality expands our conception of the self. So there may be issues with our body and our mind. We discussed that nobody feels perfectly comfortable with the body that they have. Even so, we are separate from our body. Our mind may be thinking negative, but we are separate from our mind. So to the extent we can disidentify ourselves from our body-mind machine, then yeah, I am a soul, I'm still pure, no matter what are the flaws of my body-mind machine. And that way, the desirer remains unaffected by life's ups and downs. So here, especially we discussed about how the soul can be, we can situate ourselves as a soul by spiritual understanding, by spiritual wisdom. And in general, this becomes easier to do with bonds and boundaries. That the mind's emotions will keep coming, but to the extent we can identify ourselves as a soul and act at that level, to that extent we can protect ourselves. Then the second part was, this was with respect to desirable. We discussed this quite elaborately, I'll not summarize everything. Then with respect to desire, when we feel as if we have no desire to do anything, then find something that is at the intersection of desire and meaning. So generally, try to do something beyond ourselves. Even if it's a small thing, we start with that, and by that we'll get out of ourselves. Some desire will be triggered. Bhakti is not so much about giving up desires as it is about taking up more meaningful desires. And the last part was about the desirable. So in that I discussed about how most of the time we think about externals as desirable, and they may be, but the internal is much, much more desirable. So our grades in exam are important, but how much we have mastered the subject is even more important. And the ultimate internal result is devotion. Because when we have devotion, then our happiness becomes independent of success, as happened with Sanjay at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. And thus the devotion can be the ultimate antidote to depression. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Any questions? Okay.
So when we say that we need to have a meaningful desire, is that the response of our soul to the mind who is giving us negative thoughts in a state of depression?
When we say we should have meaningful desire, is that the response of our soul to our mind? Well, yes. In one sense, you could say that from the mind is not all bad. Just like if I'm on my phone, the notifications coming up. Now, some notifications can be distracting, but not all notifications are distracting. So it is for us to choose which notifications to pay attention to. If my phone is saying, okay, I'm doing some important work, and say your friend has updated the Facebook profile photo. Well, I can see that later. But it says your phone is about to be discharged. Well, you have to pay no attention to that. So we use our intelligence. You remember I said that not every thought merits thought. So similarly, for us, we need to evaluate. We may have many desires, or we have very few desires, whatever it is. But we try to find out which desire is meaningful and try to build on that. So yes, it is a soul's conscious decision to focus on certain desires. Okay. Thank you.
What are the ways to disidentify with our mind and body? One is meditation. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Is there anything else we can do?
Okay, how can we disidentify ourselves from our body-mind machine? Well, there are many things. Disidentification happens, first of all, through education. We need philosophical education. Like say, we are having these discussions, you study the Bhagavad Gita, that gives us education. Education alone is not enough, but education is the foundation. Then after education, then there is contemplation. Contemplation means we ourselves introspect. We will experience times, say for example, sometimes on a holy day, we decide to fast. Now, normally we may not be habituated to fasting, and even a little delay in our meals agitates us. But suppose we are in spiritual company and there is chanting, dancing, there is katha going on, and there's talks going on, and then we forget that we are fasting. My body is in distress, but I am not in distress. And we have that experience. That means there must be something to me beyond my body. Or sometimes we may be very disturbed and we come to the temple and there's nice kirtan going on. You know, suddenly we find that that disturbance just seems to go away. Rather, the mind is there, but it's almost like we are not affected by the mind. So we all will sometimes have experiences when we realize, it may be very difficult to realize that I am not my body-mind machine. But what we can realize is, there is more to me than my body and my mind. There is something more to me. That is something which is not very difficult to realize if we are contemplative, if we are self-observant. Another way of putting contemplation is, you can call it introspection. It's contemplation on oneself, or our own experiences, on our own our responses to our experiences. That's one thing. Then of course what you said, meditation. When for example, when we do mantra chanting, that is a conscious effort made by us to raise our consciousness to the spiritual level. The more we become habituated to that, the easier it will be for us to not only recognize these moments of insight, but also to reorient ourselves towards them. And of course, beyond this disidentification happens by mercy. There are times of divine grace, where we get that epiphany, we get that insight. So that is not in our control, but if we are doing the other things, then we are making ourselves more receptive to mercy. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Guru.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, questions?
Okay.
Nikhil?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I just remembered that at the beginning you were talking about chapter 18, verse 35.
Sorry, yeah?
About Krishna telling about dreaming is in the mode of ignorance. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that the dreaming when he's talking about is when you sleep?
The training that Krishna is talking about in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
The 18th chapter, the verse that you said, 1835.
Which verse?
The verse in the beginning that you said, 18.35.
18.35.
Yeah. Isn't that dreaming when we sleep? Isn't that dreaming that we sleep?
1835. Does it refer to dreaming during sleep? Well, if you see the context, Krishna is talking about determination in the mode of ignorance. Now, if we dream at night, that's not in our control. If you tell someone, can the government pass a law? Nobody should dream at night. No, so why would we be judged and condemned for something that is not in our control? So that dreaming, that swapna, if you look at the other things in that list, they are conscious behavioral patterns that we can do something about. Like, ya swapnam bhayam shokam, constantly being fearful. We can do something about it. Vishadam, constantly lamenting. We can do something about it. Dreaming is largely not in our control. Why would that be, if it literally meant dreaming at night? It would have nothing to do with, is it a destructive thought pattern? It is, Krishna is talking about destructive behavioral patterns. So that, although the word uses swapna, it is referring not so much to the dreaming at night, it is more referring to the dreaming that disconnects us from reality. Just like lamenting, moroseness, it just disconnects us in an unhealthy way from reality. So that's what is being referred to over here also. Okay?
But why does Prabhupada then talk about dreaming as sleep in that purport?
Why does?
Srila Prabhupada talks about like you dream at night. Dreaming is reference to like when you're sleeping, and that is in mode of ignorance.
Yeah, dreams may be in sleeping, especially excessively. That is in the mode of ignorance. That's of course true. But what Prabhupada is talking over there is about the mode of ignorance. What Krishna is talking there is about the determination in the mode of ignorance. It is not just about ignorance, the mode of ignorance. It is, what is that? Ya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madam evcha na vimunchati durmedha dhruti sa partha tamasi. Dhruti is determination. So Prabhupada is giving in the purport a general description of the mode of ignorance. Whereas Krishna, often Srila Prabhupada in his purports does not go into the technicalities of the Bhagavad Gita. The Prabhupada is giving us an explanation which focuses on the broad principles of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is talking there about the determination in the mode of ignorance. So yes, excessive dreaminess can lead to excessive sleep. And excessive sleep is definitely characteristic of the mode of ignorance. But what we were discussing based on that verse is determination in the mode of ignorance. Okay? So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Thai Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Bol. Thank you, Caitanya Charan Prabhu. Prabhu would be happy to sign his books and calendar.
Can I speak a little bit?
Sorry.
I'll speak a little.
Do you want to talk about the book?
So much of what I spoke today is from this book. You are not your mind, you are better. So these are 64 reflections on mind management based on the Bhagavad Gita. Each is a 2-page article with a simple diagram of the kind that I was drawing, and it also has a 1-sentence summary and some self-reflection questions. So this can be like a handbook for managing your mind, and each is based on a Gita verse, so you can read the Gita verse further also and contemplate. So this is one book, and then we have a calendar. This is 365 quotes inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. It's, for example, be mindful or your mind will make you a fool. So this is inspired by 626 from the Bhagavad Gita. So these are 365 quotes inspired by different verses from the Gita. Each of them is self-explanatory quote in one sense, but if you Google it, it will take you to my website gitadaily.com, where you can get an article about it also. But even without that, this can be a quick spiritual reminder for you. So both of these are available, and if you want, I'm also available briefly for signing the books. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Caitanya Charan Prabhu is with us until Monday. He's giving Bhagavatam class tomorrow morning and also on Monday morning. So you're most welcome to come and join. At 6 p.m. we'll start with Gaura Arti, and then you can have Prasadam and Govindas, and then 8 p.m. is Shayan Arti. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Thank you. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jayo Radha Gopinath Radha Kirto Gopinath Radhe Radha Gopinath Radha Kirto Jayo Radha Gopinath Radha Kirto Gopinath Radhe Radha Gopinath Jayo Jagat